I mean, that's clear, which was called. The question is, will they call it unnecessary? Chennedy Carter
has finally broken her silence about this Caitlin Clark situation. Chennedy Carter just jumped out the window and justified in a...
How does one of the WNBA's most dangerous scoring weapons end up on the outside looking in as a new season approaches? Chennedy Carter, a proven offensive force with numbers that demand respect, is missing from every team's lineup. That kind of absence is almost unheard of for a player with her production, signaling that this situation runs much deeper than stalled contract talks. The cloud now looms over her career, fueled by a highly visible confrontation with the league's newest superstar and growing murmurs about off-court issues teams may be unwilling to gamble on. What really happened behind the scenes? And how did a player once poised to be a cornerstone talent suddenly become untouchable? The league's silence speaks volumes. Whatever the truth is, it's clear there's more unfolding beneath the surface, and it hasn't been told yet.
Situation that happened.
Yeah. So, in basketball a little bit, there's things called talking, what you like to call smack or whatever everybody likes to call it.
Yeah.
Plays before things are said, you know.
The flashpoint that set everything ablaze came last June in what should have been an ordinary regular season matchup between the Chicago Sky and the Indiana Fever. Caitlin Clark, the rookie phenom drawing historic attention to the WNBA, had just finished a play. The game continued to flow. Then, suddenly, it didn't. Moments after scoring herself, Chennedy Carter veered sharply across the floor. It wasn't a defensive rotation. It wasn't a basketball play. Her route took her directly toward Clark, far from the ball and the action. Slow-motion replays tell the story in unsettling detail. Carter appears to say something, locks eyes with Clark, and then delivers a forceful blindside shoulder check. Clark crashed to the court at first. Officials whistled it as a routine foul, the kind that happens in a physical league. But a second look changed everything. The call was swiftly upgraded to a flagrant foul. The contact wasn't incidental. It was ruled unnecessary, excessive, and delivered after the play was already dead. Through it all, Clark's response stood in stark contrast to the moment itself. She got up calmly, showed no outward frustration, and never retaliated, just reset and played on. But the moment had already landed. Fans, analysts, and league insiders knew this wasn't simply tough basketball. It felt intentional, personal, and, as many would soon point out, it wasn't the first time Carter's behavior had raised serious concerns.
Been kind of up against the fence when speaking about this Caitlin Clark situation. We remember when she first got asked about this during a press conference, she stated that she wasn't going to speak on Caitlin Clark. Now we know months later, she still hasn't spoken on the whole situation. That is until today. Yes, Chennedy Carter finally broken her.
That explosive moment wasn't an isolated blemish on Chennedy Carter's resume. Questions about her composure and professionalism had surfaced long before the Clark incident ever made headlines. In 2021, during her time with the Atlanta Dream, Carter was hit with a serious disciplinary action, an indefinite suspension for what the team described as conduct detrimental to the organization. At the time, details were kept tightly under wraps. But as reports trickled out, a clearer picture began to form. The suspension stemmed from a heated locker room confrontation involving then-teammate Courtney Williams. According to multiple accounts, the argument spiraled out of control, with claims that Carter was removed from team activities and even sought to escalate the situation physically, though Williams reportedly declined to engage. That episode ultimately ended Carter's tenure in Atlanta, with the Dream trading her to the Los Angeles Sparks. The move didn't just mark a change of scenery, it cemented a narrative, one that suggested issues with team chemistry and conflict management weren't new challenges in Carter's career. Viewed through that lens, the clash with Caitlin Clark takes on added significance. It no longer looks like a one-off misjudgment, but part of a broader pattern, one that collided head-on with a league entering a new era, driven by its most visible and valuable rising star.
With Teresa Weatherspoon, with Angel Reese, with Camila Cardoso, and, the rest of the folks. And then we get to the body. This was originally ruled an away from the ball foul, but it was obviously a flagrant foul. It really upset a lot of people. which really escalated the issue, and it was really just poor.
The timing of the Clark incident could not have been worse. The WNBA is in the middle of a historic surge, shattering viewership records, filling arenas, and commanding attention like never before. At the center of that momentum is what many now call the Clark effect, the massive wave of interest Caitlin Clark carried from her record-breaking college career straight into the professional game. The league knows exactly what it has. This moment is a rare opportunity to cement its place in the mainstream sports landscape, and with that comes an intense focus on image, professionalism, and the protection of its most visible stars. Against that backdrop, Carter's flagrant foul, especially one involving Clark, wasn't seen as simple hard-nosed play. It was perceived as a threat to the very momentum the league was fighting to preserve. From a public relations standpoint, it was a nightmare. What followed only deepened the damage. When reporters asked Carter directly about the incident, she brushed it off with a now infamous response, "I don't know Caitlin Clark questions." The deflection, paired with months of silence afterward, created a vacuum, one quickly filled by criticism, speculation, and growing scrutiny. That silence hung heavy until Carter finally chose to speak. But when she did, her explanation didn't quiet the noise. If anything, it only amplified the doubts surrounding her future in a league determined to protect its moment.
Caitlin Clark, and it's another thing blindsiding her. Like, I don't think there's no justification for that. Like, to be honest, we can be.
Months after the incident, with 2025 WNBA training camps looming and Carter still glaringly ensigned, she finally resurfaced in an interview with online streamer Neon. What was meant to be a clarification quickly turned into a public relations misfire. Carter minimized the blindside shoulder check, brushing it off as harmless trash talk and competitive intensity, describing the hit as little more than a tap, a way of saying "I'm here." That framing clashed sharply with the video evidence, which showed Caitlin Clark being knocked violently to the floor. Even more surprising, Carter introduced a brand new claim. She suggested that Clark may have elbowed her moments earlier, implying the contact was a response rather than an unprovoked act. The problem? Game footage showed no such elbow, no provocation, and no justification. Fans and analysts were quick to call it a retroactive excuse, one unsupported by anything on screen. Carter then tried to place the foul in a broader basketball context, comparing it to physical confrontations in the NBA and pointing to moments where stars like LeBron James have been shoved in frustration. Critics immediately noted the flaw in that comparison. Those plays typically happen in the flow of live action. Carter's did not. This was off the ball. After the play, with intent, instead of softening perceptions, the interview reinforced them. What was meant to reframe the story only highlighted the very concerns that appear to have teams backing away. Questions not about her talent, but about judgment, accountability, and trust.
League where you're targeted like that. How do you sit here and profess and demand that everyone take women's sports seriously when you can't even take it seriously enough to not act like a junior high queen on the court? It's stupid. That's so dumb.
The backlash to Carter's interview was swift and brutal. Social media erupted almost instantly, flooded with disbelief and accusations of damage control. One widely shared reaction summed up the mood perfectly. "You don't seriously believe this, right?" That skepticism wasn't limited to online chatter. Analysts and basketball commentators were equally unforgiving, dismissing the interview as a transparent, last-minute PR move from a player staring down the reality of being ensigned. After months of silence, the sudden urge to explain felt less like clarity and more like convenience, especially with the season rapidly approaching. What further inflamed criticism was Carter's abrupt change in tone toward Caitlin Clark. After previously making remarks that appeared to minimize Clark's,
And her in the middle of the sophomore season, basically saying she was a detriment to the team and the team culture. So then the Atlanta Dream decided to trade her to the